Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. So I've been watching some of the UN things as they stream live and just reading a lot of the comments stuff. And I want to touch on one of the major asked questions that's usually coming across those chats. So the question is, how is what's happening in the Ukraine any different than when America went over to Afghanistan, Iraq, and things like that? So we went over to those areas. This is what it looks like to me. This is what the claim is, to defend these other tribes and things like that from a regime. Now, did we stay too long? Oh, I'm sure we stayed for the wrong reasons, but that's what happens when politicians are making the call. But was their life saved? Absolutely. Was there a need for that military peacekeeping force? Absolutely. Now, the difference between what happened there and what's happening in the Ukraine with Russia. So, let's go back to the very beginning. Russia's setting up along Ukraine's borders, and they're saying, no, we're doing a military drill. We're not going to invade. Then out of the blue, Putin comes up. I recognize Donbass and Kharkov. I can't pronounce the names, guys. Anyway, these two areas, he recognizes them. That is the eastern side of the Ukraine. Now, remember, in 2014, Russia took over Crimea. They call it annexed, but they pushed all the Ukrainians out of Crimea. The reason he wants that southeast and that eastern flank there, okay, is he will effectively control the Black Sea. That's what his plan is. Now, will he pull back? Oh, I'm sure if he can't take the capital, apparently it's costing him more than what he originally had figured in. That's why he's talking these peace talks. I, for one, would not fall for his peace talks. There are reports coming in that there's rain and his fuel trucks and things like that are actually getting stuck, and he can't get his equipment to the front line quick enough. So what do? Well, what's Putin going to do? Well, let's talk peace while he's still moving stuff in. The peace talks will fail because it is not a negotiation. It is one-sided. It's all going to be Putin's way. So what is the difference between what happened with America in the Middle East and what's happening with Ukraine and Russia attacking? Is Russia is actively expanding its borders. Okay, the UN Charter, the reason the UN came into existence and the reason these countries, when they were allowed into it, is because they agreed that where the border stood is where the borders are going to stand. Now, nations may rise up within those and get independence and things like that, but you cannot, expand your country, which is what Russia is doing. So they are breaking the very charter of what the UN was built upon. I've seen people say, oh, well, the UN doesn't have tanks and the UN doesn't have troops and things. I've traveled around a lot in RV. I've seen the tanks with the big UN on the freaking side of the things. They obviously have tanks. We've seen pictures of UN troops with the blue Smurf hats and things like that overseas. Yes, they have their military. Could they have went over there? Well, they're not NATO. You need to understand the UN and NATO are two totally different things. Yes, the UN could have went in a peacekeeping agreement. They did not. Why? Because they're a bunch of sycophants and they're a bunch of cowards, and they don't care about getting involved. They're all scared. They're spineless. They're scared because Putin gets up there and says, well, I'll just go nuclear if anyone gets involved. The press, but Putin's won this war, guys, on a lot of fronts. The only thing that's holding him back from claiming victory right now are the Ukrainian people. He's won it on the money side, okay? You need to understand, he's worth in the trillions. He's probably the richest man in the world. Putin is. He controls all of the oil wealth coming from Russia. When Biden took office, and you can check these facts, guys, the first thing he done and everyone cheered was he ended our ability to create our own fuel here, where we wasn't dependent on other nations. He then turned and he signed with Russia, which would be with Putin, for 1/3 of this country's reserves and oil that we import is coming from Russia. So maybe you're wondering why Biden's not too big in getting involved and things like that. You got to remember, the big guy, he was getting some cuts. Is part of Ukrainian's government dirty? It probably is. All governments are dirty. Every nation, every government is. Remember, Hunter Biden had a job over there making a lot of money. What was his qualifications? He's a crackhead. So, why are we not supporting them? You got to understand, people are like, well, all the Ukraine had to do was sit peacefully and Russia wouldn't have come over. That's another one of the responses. Well, they did that. They wanted to remain neutral. They let Russia come in and remove the nuclear weapons after they established their independence and things like that. Russia come over, took the nukes that were over there, and took them back into Russia. And then out of the blue, boom, They take over Crimea. So then they start looking, okay, well, maybe we need to figure out a way to prevent this from happening here, again. So they started looking at joining NATO. Overcomes Russia. All right. Something else you need to think about. Russia has already threatened Finland. All right. You need to understand that. Putin has, and when I say Russia, I mean Putin. The people of Russia, I'm sure, are sitting back going, man, don't let this turn into a world war. Then I'm sure there are those who don't really care. Let it turn into a war. There's people on every spectrum, guys, within countries. But I think most people are peace loving when it comes to that. But we need to understand that this stuff is it that Putin is looking to start a world war, or has the one world order, new world order, whatever you want to call it. It's not going to be a new world order. So you need to understand that the original new world order that was the United States, we got away from the oligarchs and things like that back in the past. That was one of the things they wanted to get into, a new type of a world order, which was democracy over kings and things like that as well, and czars and emperors and stuff. And we kind of looked at the ancient Rome, where they had the Senate, they had their Congress, and they had their governors and things like that spoke for the people. But we should have looked at it a little closer, because all of those people were corrupt. That's why Rome fell. That's where we're at as a country right now. So that is the difference between what happened when we went to the Middle East. Did we expand the United States of America over there? Did we own the Middle East? No. Did we name some new states and countries after our country and that? No, we did not. But Russia is doing that. And then they say, oh no, it's annexed. That's the key word there. He can say it's annexed, but you can guarantee on his maps it's showing that it's theirs. And he wants to grab that eastern flank. He threatened Finland that if they continue talking with NATO and things like that, that he will attack them after he's finished in Ukraine. Now, will Russia take that capital? The forces of all of Russia, if he wanted to commit full frontal assault, he could probably take it. I have no delusion that the little bit of stuff that Ukraine has would hold back. But there are reports coming in from the European Union saying that they're intercepting these dialogues, where Putin is actually really ticked off because what he attributed to this battle is not enough. So it's basically, if you send 100,000 people in and you've got 20,000 people kicking their butt back, it's like, well, I thought we sent enough. You told me this is all it was going to take. It kind of sounds like what the dialogue is that's going on. I don't know that he sent 100,000, but I do know that he's supposedly has more divisions back, and those divisions started moving forward. And this U.S. general is saying that these things are actually stuck. They can't get in because of the weather that's out there right now. So that would be my expectation of what it is. He's wanting to do a peace summit to talk, basically terms of surrender for Ukraine. I hope they don't surrender. That's up to the people what they want to do. Win or lose, I wouldn't just hand my country over. That's what happened here in America when England came over. We did not just hand our country over to them. We fought, and against insurmountable odds, we won. So that's something to think about. I think it's just really sad what's going on over there right now. And I wanted to touch on something else here just real quick. I said it's going to be a quick video. I'm going to try to keep it within 15 minutes if I can, guys, so just bear with me. This is something to think about. And again, this is not, I don't know this for a fact. Obviously, nobody knows. But when we look at what's going to happen in the tribulation period, leading into the tribulation period, guys, we have our mindset based off what we hear from Hollywood and based off what we've heard from preachers who are getting their information from Hollywood, and people that have written books are not really looking at it from the Bible standpoint. But when these horsemen ride out, everyone was saying, okay, so the Red Horseman, that was World War II. I don't believe that was World War II. I believe that's a World War III event, mainly because of the death and the pestilence and things that follow with the other horsemen. We have this kind of view that the tribulation period is going to be filled with all this technological advances and stuff like that, and understand that I believe that beast system, the one world order, they will have that type of technology, but we are not going to be as technologically advanced as we like to think, because they're going to be able to control you better if they can dwindle the population down. How would you do that? Massive war, nuclear strikes, things like that. Now, as far as the rapture, I'm not going to get into when I think it's going to be, because it says no man's going to know, only the Father knows. So there's no point in guessing. There's always the argument, well, it's pre-tribulation, it's mid-tribulation, or it's at the end of the tribulation. It's going to be exactly when it happens. We're seeing things happening in our world today that people are saying, well, that will be, during the tribulation period, like beheading of the saints and things like that, Christians being hunted down, and it's happening in other countries now. So something to think about. And I don't speak Russian. All I can go by is what is being interpreted from the interpreters in these newscasts. Putin has come out and said that he is waging a war against neo-Nazi type people, okay? And that he is on a divine mission from the Orthodox Church, all right? And that this is a Christ-led battle. And he is saying that he's fighting for the Orthodox Church. That is the one true church, the Orthodox Church. Now think about that. That's what he's saying. But he's grabbing the title of Christian, running along. Let's say this goes to World War III type thing, and they do start throwing nukes at each other, and that there's a population left over. How much do you think that population is going to hate anyone that is called a Christian, anyone who believes in God? We know that happens during the tribulation period. So, something to think about. Could this guy, he's obviously, all your people that are, it says that the world is led by principalities and powers of darkness. You need to understand that there are different types of angels that are out there. The ones that have fallen, a third of heaven fell. And we have different names today than what they have, so like seraphims, cherubims, and archangels and different things like that. Well, some of those names, and there's a lot of different classes, but some of those names actually, when translated into English, the types are principalities, powers. Those are what they're called. They have different stations different stations in the heavenly realm, and now they have been cast out, and they're down here and they're controlling these nations. So I wouldn't say that he's possessed. I will say that he's oppressed and that he's being deceived, and all of the world governments are playing right into the hand for one thing: to bring about what will be the tribulation period. Now, I will say this much: I don't know how much of the 7-year tribulation period, if we would see it as believers. My understanding in the Bible is that is toward Israel. But you know what? If we got to make it all the way through it, it doesn't matter, because Christ is going to be with us. It says to live is Christ, to die is gain. That means while we're alive, we keep our focus on Christ and our faith in Christ. When we are dead, when we die, this body is dead, whether it be from old age or we're murdered or whatever, sickness or whatever. We now have our gain, which is in heaven for all eternity. So don't let that bother you. But I do think it's important that we prep. I don't really prep for the mentality of, well, this is for me or for my family. If I need it, we got it. I prep from that aspect of, even if we're not here, this is going to be a stockpile. There will be stockpiles available for other people. They will have what they need, whether it be for hunting and things like that. They will have what they need for food. They will have, some fuel supplies and stuff like that, which will help them at a time where they are being hunted down because they are Christians. So you need to understand, prep, like your life depends on it. It just might. But somebody else's life is definitely going to depend on it. So pass that blessing forward is my advice, guys. But just think about that. Do we really think that we're going to be sitting here with our smartphones and things like that during the tribulation period? Maybe if you take the mark, you'll be granted those luxuries. But if you're a Christian, they're not going to give you any luxury. The luxury you're going to have is a safe night's sleep somewhere that's going to be, well hidden, probably a sewer or in a cave, like it was when Rome was hunting the church. So I'm going to leave y'all on that note, guys. Have a wonderful evening.